connecting our lives to help us survive, so we spend our time to the fullest we can.
Hello, I'm Jack, and I currently live in Ohio. I have behavioral variant frontal temporal degeneration, and I have been diagnosed with that disease since 2020. I'm going to talk today about issues I had with going to church after my diagnosis. And maybe my situation isn't 100% the same as yours, but I think if you're struggling with that or you have concerns about uh, what going to church is like after a diagnosis, I think some of the things I'll discuss today can still apply to you. Some of the things that I was really afraid of, I guess, is the best way to say it, after I got my diagnosis was about, learning new names of people or possibly remembering, people's names. It's always harder, it seems, when you don't see everyone on a daily basis to remember their names. I had concerns about singing the hymns because what if I read the wrong stanza and I'm, two verses off? Or if I can't keep my pitch anymore, I can't sing the right notes. I was worried about that. Um, and probably a big one, although you wouldn't maybe think of it in church, but there can be commotion in church. There are children, toddlers, and babies that make noise, and something like that's just going to grab my attention, especially if I can see it. So seeing it and hearing it, just I'll focus on that, and next thing I know, the pastor's halfway through his sermon or his message, and I don't know what he's been talking about. I was concerned about being able to follow the order of service. Uh, my church uses a very liturgical worship service, and I was afraid of not being in the right place all the time. And again, the noise and confusion caused me concern about getting the message from the pastor and really being able to walk out of church with something gained. Um, and then during communion, I was also concerned about, dropping or spilling the host, the wafer or bread or in the wine. Um, I didn't want to make a mess with those because that's not good. So my first thought was, well, um, I'll just avoid church for a while. You know, we moved right in the middle of the COVID pandemic, so that was an easy solution for a time being because uh, a lot of people weren't going to church then. We'd watch it on TV or on YouTube or something. But finally, I realized that staying away from church was not very healthy for my spiritual growth. And so we decided to go back to church, and I really needed to come up with some strategies to cope with these concerns that I had. So I did a few things. One thing that I did actually solved three different problems that I mentioned earlier. And that was um, being the non-traditional church goer. I sat up front. Now, sitting up front is not where I was used to sitting, and it didn't really take me any time to get used to it because like I said, it did three things to help me. First off, it allowed me to really focus on the pastor and what he was talking to us about, what his message was for the day. Um, Being in the front, I felt like there was nobody else in the church and he was just talking to me. We were having a conversation, but I was letting him do the talking. The second thing it did is it helped to get rid of the commotion. We do have children and babies in our church, and they do make noise during the service, but it's behind me, and I still hear it, but I don't see it. So it doesn't grab a hold of my attention like it used to. And I found that's been a real help. Um, Plus, I think when you're sitting up front and the pastor can see you so well, you have to pay attention, right? No more catnapping during the sermon. Uh, the third thing it did for me sitting up front was in the singing. Now, so far, I don't think I've lost a lot of my ability to stay on pitch or sing the right words. Uh, but if I don't, or when I don't, there's only one person in the church that can hear me, and that's the pastor. And I don't think he's going to kick me out for doing that. That covered three of my concerns, and it was so simple. Now it did those three things, but it also helped a fourth one, and that's to do with communion. Now I'm the first one to receive communion because I'm the one that's sitting up closest to the front of the church, and I get called to the table first. So um, in order to not drop the bread or the wafer, um, I just cup my hands kind of like that, and I ask the pastor will just place it in my hands, and I don't try to pick it up from my hand. I just take those to my mouth, and I bend over so I don't spill it, but I grab it with my tongue um, that way. And you can also sometimes ask, and the pastor will actually place, the wafer or bread in your mouth for you. And then when it comes to the wine, um, I'm looking at a whole tray full of little wine cups, and I can pick the one that's got the least amount of wine in it. That's so if I get nervous for some reason and I start to have some tremor, um, likely I'm not going to spill it. But that hasn't been a problem. And again, you can always ask for assistance from the servers, and they will help you. The other thing I've done to help with names, this has probably been my biggest challenge. Um, but each week, what I do is I just try to focus on one person or one couple, maybe one family, or if it's a bigger family, I'll focus on the parents one week, and the next week I'll try to work on their children. Um, and by attending things other than just worship service, like going to Bible studies, going to congregation meetings, or other, social events like Easter breakfasts and those kind of things. You get to see people a little bit more frequently that way, and that's helped me get to know the people that I worship with. I hope this uh, is in some way of help to you. If you have some reservations about your dementia and going to church with it, um, naturally, I don't believe that you'll ever find another group of people than your fellow parishioners that will be as understanding and helpful as they are. So, good luck with that. Don't worry about it, and just ask for help if you need it. Thank you.
We're living beyond dementia, connecting our lives to help us survive, so we spend our time to the fullest we can. We're seeing our lives have purpose, engaging our days to find better ways, and